Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're digging into a word that honestly causes a ton of confusion. Allah. Is this a totally different God, one that's unique to Islam? Or is it just another name for the same creator that many other faiths talk about? Let's figure it out.
So right off the bat, let's just put the biggest question out there. There's this really common idea that the God Muslims worship is a completely separate being, different from the God you hear about in other major religions. But is that actually the case? Let's do some investigating.
Yeah, you've probably heard this before, right? This idea that each religion kind of has its own God, like picking from a menu. Some people even take it a step further and think of Allah as some kind of local Arab god. But as we're about to see, that whole idea really starts to fall apart when you look at the language and the history behind it.
So to really get to the bottom of this, we have to start with the word itself. Our first piece of evidence comes from linguistics. Let's actually break down what the word Allah means in its original language.
Okay, so here is our very first clue. The word Allah is the standard, everyday Arabic word for the one God. Now, this is super important. It's not a personal name like Zeus or Thor. It's actually a title, almost like a definition. But how do we get there? Let's break it down even more.
This slide shows it perfectly. In Arabic, al is what's called the definite article. It just means the. Then you have the word Ilah, which means a god or a deity in a general sense. When you put them together, they kind of contract and become Allah, which literally translates to the God. So the uniqueness, the singularity is baked right into the word itself.
And if that's still a bit fuzzy, this analogy makes it crystal clear. Think about water. You might say water in English, pani in Hindi, or ma in Arabic. The words are totally different, but the actual substance, that H2O, is exactly the same. The same logic works here. We're talking about different languages for the same concept of one creator.
Now this might be the most powerful piece of evidence we have. Arabic-speaking Christians and Jews have been using the word Allah for God in their Bibles, in their prayers, and in their churches for centuries, long before Islam even came onto the scene. So you got to ask, if Allah was an exclusively Muslim God, why on earth would they do that? The answer is simple, because Allah is just the Arabic word for God.
So we've seen the linguistic proof. Now let's dive into the scriptural connections. You'll see the title here says, the God of Abraham, Moses, and Jesus. And that's because Islam sees itself not as some brand new religion, but as a continuation of that exact same monotheistic tradition that includes all these major figures.
And this is straight from the source. This is a direct quote from the Quran. And it's actually an instruction for Muslims on how to talk with Jews and Christians. It doesn't say, our God is better or our God is different. It states, flat out, they are one and the same. This isn't some interpretation. It's right there in the text. The connections go even deeper, right into the roots of the language itself. The language Jesus spoke was Aramaic, which is like a sister language to both Hebrew and Arabic. Now, in Hebrew, a word for God is Eloah. Just say them out loud with me. Eloah, Allah. You can totally hear that shared family root, right? It's like a linguistic fingerprint pointing to a shared origin. Okay, so if Allah just means the God, then what are the core attributes of this God according to Islam? Well, the Quran gives a really precise and powerful definition in one of its shortest chapters, called Surah Al-Ikhlas. First and foremost, and this is the absolute bedrock of Islamic belief, is the idea of absolute oneness. That God is a single, indivisible entity. No partners, no equals, nothing. There is just one. The second attribute is total independence. The idea is that the whole universe depends on God for its existence, but God is as-samad, the self-sufficient. He depends on nothing and needs absolutely nothing from anyone. The third attribute tells us what God is not. The verse says, He begets not, nor is He begotten. What does that mean? It means God has no parents and no children. God wasn't created, and God doesn't procreate. This really drives home the idea of a creator who is completely separate from his creation. And finally, the fourth attribute is total uniqueness. There is nothing in all of existence that is similar to God or can even be compared to Him. This is what leads to the concept of a formless, transcendent creator who is way beyond our human imagination or any kind of picture we could draw.
All right, so we've looked at the language, we've looked at the shared history, and we've looked at the core theological definition. Let's pull all of this together now and see what conclusion we can draw.
Now check this out. This quote is from the very first chapter of the Quran, something that Muslims recite in their prayers every single day. And the wording here is so interesting.
It doesn't say Lord of the Muslims or Lord of the Arabs. It says Rabbul Alamin, which means Lord of all the worlds, Lord of everything and everyone. It's a completely universal statement.
So when you lay out all the evidence, the linguistic, the historical, and the scriptural, it all really points in one direction. The conclusion is pretty clear. Allah isn't the name of some different exclusive God. It is the Arabic word for the one and only supreme being that followers of the Abrahamic faiths and many others all worship.
And that kind of leaves us with a final thought to chew on. If the words we use for the Creator are different from culture to culture, from language to language, does that really mean the being we're trying to reach is different? Or is it possible that while the paths people walk are many, the destination they're all seeking is ultimately one and the same?